It's the Storytella Comedy Hour, starring me!
Log on to YouTube if you haven't already and subscribe to our channel.
Cory Parella The Storytella here for your daily story. Currently, I'm a grad student at UNLV. Occasionally, I get the eye of one of the young ladies who's half my age. So being I'm unmarried, I go over to her and I say, "Young lady, you're quite a looker. How you doing? Is your mom single?" Turns out, Mom was single. So I get a hold of Mom. I'm talking to this beautiful lady. I ask her out. She agrees. So we decide at first to go to her place. She says, "Would you like to play cards?" She's trying to find out what I like to do for fun, have some casual conversation. I say, "You know what? We're grown-ups. Let's be a little risque. Let's not play cards. Let's play strip chess." So here we were, playing strip chess. As you know, chess can take years. Right now we're 3 moves in. Fellas ask me, "Did you put the move on?" I said, "Yes, I did." I said, "Pawn to knight 2. It's 2 moves to 1. Now for every single piece of the chessboard that leaves, an article of clothing must be removed. Well, this young lady, granted, she's my age, and she's got a kid in college. She thinks ahead. She's wearing multiple shirts. So with my move, she takes off one of the shirts. Now, she got 2 moves on me. I'm expecting, hey, I'm going to lose some clothing here. Turns out she asked if I could please remove both of my socks. My name is Cory Parella The Storytella, and that's today's story.
It was around 1983, 84. Most people think of the 1980s as this warm, nostalgic time. I don't have that. I grew up during that time. I was born in 73, so there I was, 10 years old, absolutely terrified of nuclear holocaust. That's what we heard on the news every day. And the one thing that gave us comfort was whatever was happening with the University of Arizona Wildcats. Being a Copp's kid, I grew up in Tucson. My dad was the most decorated narc cop the city ever had. And he did some amazing things. When he was not fighting crime, basically, he would like to spend his weekends watching whether it was football, U of A football, or U of A basketball. Now, this was just before Lute Olson came in and transformed the state, which is what I talked about in the novel The Faithful. And the football games were a big deal. Now, you got to understand, some cities, some states, their football programs, like Alabama or Texas, you're either in the national championship game winning by 14 touchdowns, or they don't care. Tucson treated its football program like Mexican soccer. You know, Mexican soccer is goal with U of A. Was they on a first down? And of course, my dad was excited about this because at the time he was a non-traditional student, working as a police officer and getting his bachelor's degree. So I watched him look at we had a big screen TV. I use that term loosely. It was so big, the TV was so big, you could probably park a car inside the TV case. It was enormous. In fact, the glass on it used to be a windshield for a car. I'm kidding, but you know, it was huge. And the tiny speaker that was inside this thing, if you listen to it, it sounded like somebody was reporting with the Hindenburg from Germany, oh, the humanity. It sounded like it was a speaker from 1919, okay? Like whatever was receiving the Titanic distress call. That was what was in this TV. So it wasn't very loud, but he loved to watch the games nevertheless. And my oldest sister at the time had just gotten into high school. There were a handful of things that were happening in the country. We had, obviously, Reagan trying to deal with the Cold War. We had the music scene was exploding. The British invasion repeated. You had bands like Duran Duran and Tears for Fears. And my sister's all-time favorite band, Culture Club, with Boy George. And at the time, he had a song called Karma Chameleon. So for Christmas the previous year, my dad went out and got my sister this gorgeous, huge stereo set. And back then, stereo sets, bigger the better, and all the stores carried these vinyl albums. So my mom took him and showed him which music she'd probably like, and he got the stereo, and she's Christmas morning screaming like one of the musicians is in the living room. Ah, ah, ah. She's just insanely happy about getting these gifts. So he pulls out all the stuff, puts it together for her, pulls out the albums, and she's just can't wait to put on her music. And of course, the very last thing he says is, you can listen to it as loud as you want, as long as you use headphones. 50-foot cable. The extension cord on the headphones was so long, she could have done 2 laps around her own bedroom and not noticed, okay? This is where the story kicks into high gear. He's trying to watch the game. It's the end of the year, they're playing Arizona State, and you hear, welcome to Arizona Stadium, I'm so-and-so, and I'm here to broadcast the greatest game that Tucsonans will ever see in their lives. And my dad is just trying to do stress relief. It's a Sunday or a Saturday, he doesn't get many of these off. My mom's kind of off to the side, she was a major sewer. I mean, she could out-sew Amish people. This woman could, if sewing could build a spaceship, she could do it, all right? So she's in her little room sewing, and you hear the da-da-da-da going on. And my dad is like, hey, are you going to watch the game with me? No, I don't care about the game. Okay, so he's watching the game, and you hear, all right, Arizona, first down and goal, blah, 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 blah. They might win this game. And Arizona had a winning season since you know, the Flintstones were on the air. It's been a while, okay? So 5-6 is not a good season for football, but it was good enough to keep the previous coaches intact. A coach came in named Larry Smith, God bless him. Had he stayed instead of going to LA and going to USC in '87, the football program could have very easily done what Lute Olson eventually did with basketball. But my dad was excited to be a part of this program. He patrolled the neighborhood where the kids lived at the U of A, and he went there as a student. He befriended many of them. We still have holiday cards we send out to now retired NFL players who went to school with him. And they ask, how was your dad? You know, and my dad died in '91, but hence the hilarity of the story. So there we are, listening to the game, or at least trying. And it's just before halftime, and you can hear, okay, and Arizona is 1st and 10 at its own 17-yard line. They're about ready to call in for a... And we hear the sound coming through the door. Karma, 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 chameleon. And Arizona is getting a stop here. We'll see what happens. Chuck Cecil goes back for the pass. He goes, the punter does this, and the quarterback does that. They come and go, they come and go. Karma, 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 karma. Jackie! Jackie! Karma, karma, karma. Jackie! What? Please turn it down. I'm trying to watch the game. Okay, sorry, Dad. 30 seconds later. Karma, 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 karma. Oh, sweet Jesus. What? Chameleon! Could you please, what happened to your headphones? Sorry, Dad, I forgot. My dad comes in. Oh, it's halftime. Oh, somebody scored, dear. Who scored? I don't know, I wasn't paying attention. Are you kidding me? Somebody scored? The announcers come back. Instant replay wasn't being used yet, but they explained, and Chuck Cecil just ran the ball back 106 yards against Arizona State. Longest play in school history. Wow, we'll never see that one again. So my dad's annoyed. Finally, there's a few minutes left to go in the game. They have a chance to win this thing by a field goal, and back then Max Dehaas was the star kicker. And you hear it, Max Dehaas coming in, he's known as Mad Max. This man does not miss a field goal, ever. He hasn't missed a field goal since he was born. In fact, he didn't miss a field goal. He came out kicking field goals from his mother's womb. So he's ready, and he's watching the game, and he's watching the game. There's been dead silence up until this point. And finally, the game is ready to, and the kick goes up, and you hear, karma, 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 chameleon. So to this day, my sister lived. Not sure as a parent I would have let her, but my dad did. So to this day, I can't hear that song without thinking about Wildcat football family, my parents, the ambiance of my home. And I wrote about it in the novel The Faithful. Log on to YouTube. YouTube if you haven't already, and subscribe to our channel.
Cory Parella The Storytella here, and here is a story for you. First, our veterans. You see them usually wearing the hats. Make sure when you see them wearing the hats, you stop and say thank you to them. They've earned it. I do this. Then I see some of these fellas, boys and girls, that you think something's fishy. They get a hold of a hat or a shirt and they try to pass it off and ask for money. I never met a real veteran who asked me for anything. So I say thank you freely. So I go up to this kid one day who doesn't look a day older than 20. And I ask him, what war are you a veteran of? And he looks at me and he says, doesn't matter. I need money because I'm a veteran. Don't you support veterans? I said, yes, I do. What I don't support are blaming narcissistic, spoiled brat liars like you. He says, how dare you call me that? I said, really? I said, do you know what your own hat says, Mr. Veteran? He looks at me. I said, you got to be able to read to be in the military. And he looks at me and he says, of course I know what it says. It says I'm a veteran. I said, young man, that hat says you're a veteran of the War of 1812. My name is Cory Parella, the storyteller. Enjoy this story.
This next story is about what it was like to have the kind of dad I did say goodbye to him. And it led me on an adventure I wasn't expecting. My dad went west from a mafia family. They were New York, New Jersey. I was born in Tucson because that's where the job offer was, to join Tucson Police Department in 1972. Cancer claimed him in 91. In 1990, he was the healthiest man and strongest man I ever knew. He looked and acted like a cross between Stallone and Al Pacino. And I remember going in that fateful day, saying goodbye to him in his hospital room, the hospice at the Cancer Ward Center at Tucson Medical Center. I didn't want to be there, but there's no easy way to do that. The beauty of it was, it wasn't just about saying goodbye to him. I told him his anger would die with him, that I wanted to be a man of purpose. Later it became one when I committed my life to Jesus Christ. That whole commitment thing happened as a result of him telling a very interesting story. This was a man who's was considered so much of a truth sayer during his lifetime. Opposing counsel by judges would say to their lawyers, if Officer Parella is on the witness list against your client, you might want to consider a plea because that man just doesn't lie. And he's so articulate, your client's going down. So this truth sayer went through a cancer sleep and emerged from it having seen the resurrected Christ, having seen Jesus. And I always joke on stage as a storyteller now, wow, he looked good for 33. You know, the wounds are healed. The kid looks good, you know, for 2033 years old, the kid looks fantastic. It's funny. When we see the resurrected Lord, we'll probably think the same thing. He saw him, and that was enough for me, and he came back to say, kids, I was just there. Tell your sister, tell your mom. And of course, referring to me, tell Cory, Jesus is the only one there. He's the only way. And he had this look of seriousness in his face. Years later, I had that in my head when I wrote screenplays, one of which became a movie that a very famous director made. I wrote a movie called 21. We got Wayman Tisdale to be in it. The screenplay went through agents and wound up at Spike Lee's desk and became He Got Game. I nicknamed it He Got Claim because I spent the next 20 years chasing him saying, hey, I'd like to get paid, please. Well, when you fast forward on that story, around 2001, I found myself working, well, it was 2000. I worked at Universal Studios on and off for a couple of years, part-time as a tour guide. And one of the things that they did to initiate us is you had Bruce the Shark, who, if you've ever seen the live Jaws ride, Bruce the Shark is probably one of the cheesiest contraptions It looks like a Jack-in-the-Box meets a Chinese hand puppet. Or not puppet, but finger puzzle. That's the word I want. And what you have to do is, if he breaks down on the tracks, you have to climb in and pull a kickstand for him to retract. That's part of what they call the final passing, being a Universal Studios tour guide. They always warned us, you might get a visitor from upstairs. Somebody likes to come down and sort of initiate and haze the new tour guides into the process. So I thought, who are they going to send down? Come on, who's really going to risk that? So this is an unofficial, this never happened, right? So there's 10 of us there for graduation day, and they think, oh, Cory knows everything about the people. He's going to pass this easy. He's not afraid of... The shark is called Bruce, named after Steven Spielberg's a lawyer, Bruce. So if you're watching Finding Nemo, that's why they call the shark Bruce. So everybody is screaming as they get into this. You're getting into Jaws' head, pulling the kickstand and letting it go back down into the water. And there's a gigantic aquarium that it goes down into. There's underground windows. There's even, what do you call it? A diver, a lifeguard, in case somebody falls in on accident. Kind of a boring job, but I hope they never have to. You never know. People are stupid. So anyway, I'm the last one, and I'm thinking, clearly I'm going to scream because everyone else is. I pull my shirt, smarty pants here, I pull my shirt over my eyes. So I'm there, looking like Beaker from the Muppets. I poke my head in, I can feel all the parts, and finally my hand finds the kickstand, and as it grips it, I hear, ah! And I'm like, my God, something just happened. I quickly pull it, and there's nothing like that perspective of seeing Jaws move away from you like that. I mean, you just can't replicate that. And I look up, and I pull my shirt down, and who's standing there but Steven Spielberg? Now, this man's life is full of stalkers. So I mentioned to him, yes, sir, I grew up like near where you did and where you made your first film. I was right there. He starts quizzing me on like plant life and bushes, little landmarks that you have to be a local to know where they are. So I'm talking to him for maybe another minute or two, and everyone else seems to notice that he's more focusing on me, and they're a little jealous. But what he says to me was kind of a surprise and a little bit prophetic. He says, you strike me as every history teacher I ever knew. Well, thank you. He goes, are you a history teacher? And I wasn't yet, but I would eventually become licensed to teach history. And he says, I want you to promise me something. If you ever become a history teacher, show your students my work. And he meant Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan. So over time, I did become a teacher. When the civil rights movement was taught, I would say, kids, I know that we've got some of this curriculum here, but let me show you why we're even studying this. And I showed them the clips from Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan, stuff that was appropriate for them to see. And I would say to them, I'm not showing you this to show off. I'm showing you this because I promised a friend of mine who risked everything to make these movies. If I ever taught history, I'd show them to you. And I told him the story about that. Now, in recent years, just a lesson to myself about how forgetful people are about big names in the movie industry. How quickly we forget. We really have a 48-hour memory of who's big. I was in one classroom recently where I was describing E.T. and Jaws and Raiders of the Lost Ark as being the guy who told me to play these movie clips for him. And all the kids were just deer in headlights. No idea. Who's that? And I went, Ready Player One. And they all went, oh my gosh, really? Becoming a teacher, if I wasn't called to do what I'm doing here, if I wasn't called to perform for you, I remember telling my grade school girls, the 19th Amendment has given you the right to fly spaceships and run countries, so you owe it to those who came before you to do exactly that. Because there is nothing in America that is free except opportunity. And anyone willing to work hard enough, by the grace of God, you will change the world. You will make this place 1 degree better than you came into it. But bear this in mind. You don't need to save the world. Jesus already took care of that.
Cory Parella the Storyteller here for your daily story.
Cory Parella the Storyteller here. I got a story for you. Have you ever heard of the 15 apostles? I know, most people have heard of the 12. Judas had issues. And then we added 13 with Matthias. Then we added 14 with Paul. Who's this guy? For the sake of argument, for the sake of this story, we're going to call this guy Phil. Phil was the rich guy that walked up to Jesus of Nazareth while Jesus was healing people and miracles everywhere. And even the Roman government was saying, who's this guy? And this guy walks over to him and says, what do I got to do to get into heaven? And Jesus looks at him and says, take all your stuff, rich guy. Phil, take all your stuff. Give it away. Come follow me. He could have been 15. He was almost the next. You know what I mean? What does he decide to do? He goes home. He loves his stuff too much. Now, I got a question. What kind of cool stuff did the Romans really have that you couldn't let go of? Have you seen the ruins of Rome lately? It's a bunch of bowls. Who walks away from Jesus and chooses a bunch of bowls? You can get bowls at Walmart. They're on aisle 14. You're walking down aisle 14. Who looks at bowls on aisle 14 and says, yeah, I'd rather have this than walk with the King of Kings? I don't understand it. Let me tell you something. Matthew 7:7 says, ask, seek, and knock. Most people know how to ask, and they look up and go, God, why aren't you answering me? He did answer you. You chose the bowls. You did seek it, but you didn't have patience to say. He wants you to exercise gifts that you weren't already exercising. What you're doing is you're choosing the lesser of the two because you don't think you're entitled to his blessings and grace, when in fact you are. When you knock and the door don't open, that means he didn't open it. Look for another door. We got thousands of educational institutions in this country, folks. Kids, I'm talking to you. You're dropping out of school, don't do that. Transfer. Find something that fits you, like a quality pair of underpants. You know what I'm saying? Something that makes you feel good. We got thousands of these things. God answered you already. They started off as theological institutions and now they're universities. Transfer one of them. Finish what you start. Have the blessings that he wants to give you. Ask, seek, knock. The right door is going to open. Don't settle for a bunch of bowls. My name is Cory Parella The Storytella, and that's a true story.
This story is called Piggies. I got very sick a few years back. I was a stay-at-home dad for 10 years. I raised my children. I was that 2 a.m. dad who changed diapers. And I didn't have very much energy because I got an extreme allergy and I was coughing up a lung for a few years. But at one point I decided, even though I couldn't conveniently go and put my kids to sleep and read them bedtime stories, I was going to make an effort to do something. So at one point, my kid's mom looks at me, and we were still very much in love. She says, you got to do something, even if it's just 5 minutes. And I'm like, you're right. You're absolutely right. So this is what we came up with. I sat my first son, I got oldest is a boy and then 2 girls, sat him on my lap. I used my hand here as if it's his foot. And I did a reenactment of Piggies, as in this little piggy goes to market. It went like this. This little piggy goes to market. This little piggy stay at home. This little piggy bought roast beef. And this little piggy had none. And this little piggy right here, this one right here, this one went all the way home. And of course I picked my kids up one at a time and I pretended like it was Magic Mountain and I tossed them around the room and they flew. So to this day they line up. Boom, boom, boom. Daddy's gonna do Piggies. Where do I stand for Piggies? They get excited about this one. So we took something that was kind of stale. And as a dad, I decided I'm going to give them something they're going to remember for the rest of their lives. Love my children. Live for them.